we will run a substantial short-term deficit this year, which I would estimate at more than $50 billion.
This year?
This year.
What about next year? Are you projecting for that?
No, I'm not looking at next year. I'm comfortable with where we are going out 2010, 2011. But this year, we have the extraordinary unemployment, and that's resulting in a lot more unemployment claimants and a lot more money going out. That's good. It's a stimulus to the economy, and it helps cushion the impact for those people who lose their jobs. The system works that way.
Why not?
And we also have the auto sector, which is a substantial.
Why not next year? Why not project next year?
What is the biggest factor contributing to this deficit? I mean, how much does autos contribute to that?
Autos is substantial. That's not completed yet. The General Motors negotiations are not finished, but the figure will be substantial.
What do you say to Canadians who are going to hear that number and probably go?
I think I think Canadians know where we are in the world. We're better off than most countries in the world. This recession started outside Canada. It's necessary in the short term to run a large deficit, relatively large, to make sure that Canada gets through this well. Compared to the United States, compared to the United Kingdom, compared to the rest of the G7, our debt to GDP ratio is very good. Canada's in good shape. This will be a short-term deficit, and we'll be able to manage it.
Mr. Speaker, in September, the government said there'd be no recession. In October, no deficits. In November, they promised a surplus. But in January, they brought down a $34 billion deficit. Yesterday, it ballooned to $50 billion. All this in a breathtaking 6 months. And still the money hasn't got out the door. This is incompetence on a historic scale. How can the Prime Minister or any other Canadian still have confidence in the Minister of Finance?
Right Honourable Prime Minister, order.
Speaker, over the last few months, we're all aware that the deficit, the financial situations have deteriorated in all countries due to the recession. Fact of the matter, Mr. Speaker, is that our deficits in Canada are a third to a quarter the size of the deficit in the United States, the United Kingdom, Japan. Mr. Speaker, these deficits are affordable. What we are doing is we are borrowing money at historically low interest rates to help unemployed people, to build infrastructure. That is what we should be doing and what we will continue to do.
Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the issue here is the credibility of the Government of Canada and the credibility of this Minister of Finance. Just 5 weeks ago, the Minister of Finance said, and I quote, "I'm comfortable with our projections. We're on track." On track to where? The largest deficit in Canadian history. Canadians just cannot trust this government with their money. Will the Prime Minister fire this Minister of Finance?
Order. The Right Honourable Prime Minister, order.
Mr. Speaker, what's at issue here is the credibility of the Leader of the Opposition, who has been here week after week demanding not just that the government spend more, but that it spend more permanently, Mr. Speaker. And now, Mr. Speaker, he tries to come and pretend he's concerned about the deficit. Mr. Speaker, I can't fire the Leader of the Opposition, and with all the tapes I've got on him, I don't want to.
That is the most Nixonian of Mr. Harper's many remarks. Every day that goes by, he's more like Richard Nixon. We're in the middle of the most serious crisis, economic crisis, since the Second World War, and the Prime Minister of Canada is wasting his time listening to tapes of me. And then, not content with that, he says it in the House of Commons, so he'll intimidate me. I will not be intimidated by the Prime Minister. I've got a job to do, which is to hold him to account. The public finances of our country are in free fall, and he's wasting time with tapes of me. It's a joke.
So you're bringing him down now?
Look, I am where I have been for 6 months. I am trying, God knows it's hard, to make the Parliament of Canada work. Mr. Speaker, 37 days ago, the Minister of Finance said we were on track, and now we know we've gone right off the rails. 37 days ago, the deficit stood at $32 billion. Now the finance minister says it's ballooned up over 50 billion, but he didn't say how much more over 50 billion. Canadians are tired of these sorry guesstimates. They want to know the truth. When will this Prime Minister tell us the truth? How much more, Prime Minister? How much more?
And at the end of this year, the deficit will depend, obviously, on the performance of the economy. But what Canadians are wondering about when it comes to more is the leader of the Liberal Party. You know, he comes here, tries to criticize the deficit, but day after day, he is here demanding literally tens of billions of dollars of new spending from this government. New spending, permanent spending, unavoidable spending to be paid for by tax increases. Mr. Speaker, everyone knows his position on the deficit is just hypocrisy.
This party has an unimpeachable record in fiscal responsibility. We left them the record that they squandered. The Prime Minister made a second claim. The Prime Minister made a second claim yesterday, which was that the deficit will be short-term. There isn't a Canadian who believes that is true. He got us into this mess. How does he propose to get us out?
Honourable Prime Minister, order.
The record of the Liberal Party is this. They got this country into deficits when borrowing was at record levels. And then when recession came, they were cutting the unemployed and raising taxes right in the middle of a recession, something this party will never do.
Mr. Speaker, Conservatives dismissed the recession and their $50 billion deficit as just temporary, just cyclical. Not to worry, they say it's not structural. But Chrysler is in bankruptcy. GM almost. The auto sector is down to a fraction of its former self. Manufacturing is chopped by 20%. Forestry has been devastated. This is big-time structural change. Why did Conservatives put Canada into a deficit before any recession and cripple the ability to help vulnerable Canadians now?
The Honourable Minister of Finance, order.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as the member opposite knows, since he voted in favour of Canada's economic action plan, we brought in the deficit this year in order to respond to the global recession. There's a serious global recession that is deeper and broader than had been anticipated by anyone. And the hypocrites on the other side, Mr. Speaker, come in every day and ask for more spending, more deficits.
Members do enjoy freedom of speech, but calling names of other honourable members, I think the member knows is out of order. We do have hypocritical things happen in the House from time to time, but there's no hypocrite sitting here.
Mr. Speaker, 37 days ago, the Minister of Finance knew that the forest industry was in trouble. He knew that EI was up. He knew that the auto industry was in the tank. 37 days ago, Mr. Speaker, the minister said at that time, I'm staying with our budget projection. We're on track. I'd like to ask the minister a very simple question, which he has still not answered. How could he have made such a terrible statement a mere 37 days ago with respect to the financial situation in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Well, I pay attention to the questions from one of the leading Canadian experts in deficits, of course, having brought Ontario through that period from 1990 to 1995, so that by 1995, the people of Ontario were paying $1 million an hour in interest only on the debt accumulated during that time, creating a permanent structural deficit in the second largest government in this country. Here's what the member for Toronto Centre says. Again, another hypocritical position. He says, if we had a deficit now at the federal level, is that going to be the personal fault of the government? I don't think so, and I don't think that's an intelligent position. And no reasonable person.
The Honourable Member for Toronto Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm an amateur in this regard. The minister's got the MA. The minister's got the MA. The minister's got the PhD.
We have to have some order. I have to be able to hear the Honourable Member for Toronto Centre. He has the floor. Order.
The minister has become the expert. The minister has become the expert. He's going to win the Nobel Prize with respect to the financial situation. I simply want to ask the minister...
Order. Yes, there will be more, but we have to have some order so we can hear it. The honourable member for Toronto Centre has the floor. He'll have some order, even if he's addressing a Nobel Prize winner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the Conservative Party takes pride in receiving the Nobel Prize in deficits and debts, that's fine.